The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game, a show about short video games, games that respect your time. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined by one tabletop co-host,
Shane Kelly.
And this week we are returning to our normal format and actually talking about a short game called Betrayal at Club Low. This game was published and developed by developer Cosmo D and is available on Mac, Linux, and Windows platforms. A really fun, interesting little game. I'm excited, Shane, to get a chance to talk to you about it as we continue the no Reagan era of the podcast.
Where is he? The mystery continues.
Maybe actually undercover as a pizza delivery person somewhere. I could see him doing something like this.
I actually will share a Reagan backstory. When we were kids, I remember him distinctly wanting to be a pizza delivery man. He thought that would be the coolest career to have because everyone loves to see the pizza delivery man. And he thought that if he was really cool about it, then he could have a slice.
I mean, pizza delivery people, they wield great power. So I don't think he was that wrong. I don't know how often they get a slice, though. That doesn't feel very common, but
yeah, it never happened in my experience.
Yeah, makes me think I should start offering a slice to the pizza delivery person.
I mean, it's only polite.
If you're a pizza delivery person and you're listening, let us know. Have you ever had anyone turn the pizza around and offer you a slice before you drove away?
Have you just taken one before dropping the pizza off?
This pizza just didn't. It came out of the oven without that slice.
It's only fair.
Yep. Well, this is actually a pretty pizza heavy game, so this conversation is very relevant to the game that we're going to talk about. But why don't we start by kind of setting this game up a little bit? It is it's almost a classic point and click adventure with a tabletop UI laid over the top of it. Why don't you take a crack at explaining this game?
Sure. So the game is immediately completely visually striking because it just looks as weird as it is. It's I guess it starts you off with a view of a room outside the window. You can see a cityscape like jiving and dancing in the background. Buildings kind of jump into the beat. And the visual style is somewhere in between like PlayStation 2 and Discotheque and like default models from from all the different platforms you could create 3D models in. With no discernible color scheme, but no lack of like vibrance and
a lot of colors, sort of a cyberpunky vibe on top of everything. And you're like, are these people robots or are they people? There's sound effects throughout that make it kind of sound like sometimes they're robots, or some people are robots, some people are not. It might just be the wacky color scheme. I don't know. Yeah. Apparently this game actually is set in a universe. This developer Cosmo D, they put out a bunch of games. Off Peak, the Norwood Suite, Tales from Off Peak City Volume 1, and then Betrayal at Club Low, I believe, is their most recent game. And apparently most of, if not all of these games are set in this universe, so to speak. So it is there's some design consistency. I've not played any of the other games. Have you had any experience with those?
No, this is my first interaction with this developer, and the style is this sort of very surrealist, like digital surrealism that has it reminds me of the kind of Outrun kind of aesthetic, sort of that like early 90s PC demo culture look that, crossed with Dolly or something. And within that, what you're actually doing bears a great deal of resemblance to the gameplay of indie RPGs like you'd see in I would say this is very similar to another game that has similar inspirations. What was that science fiction game we played recently that was also dice based?
Recently that was dice based. I was thinking we did Tharsis a long time ago. That was a dice based science fiction game.
This is not really Tharsis-esque, if I can throw that around. No, I was thinking of the one where you're on a space station and like you got to make friends with the vending machine.
You'd certainly think that we would, between the two of us, be able to remember a game that we covered. It was
like Reagan's game of the year, and I will remember the name eventually. He's listening out there.
Oh, Citizen Sleeper.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, so I didn't play that one.
It's. I think there's a lot of overlap between the two.
Well, in this game, you start out as as this person. You can make them whatever name you want. You are dressed in a full pizza delivery outfit with a little hat and a big backpack that I guess you carry your pizzas in vertically, which seems horrible, but I don't know, maybe it's the future, it's like maybe it's a little anti-grav.
Yeah, we've mastered multi-orientation pizza transport.
Yes, it's be great for saving space. And you basically learn pretty quickly that you are on a mission to enter into Club Low. That's the titular.
It is
club.
a dance club and former coffin factory.
Yes, which is a great little aesthetic there. And you are tasked with entering Club Low and rescuing an undercover agent who is about to have their cover blown and is, in grave danger. And you have to get in there and help break them out. So it's a pretty classic, I don't know, tabletop type quest. Yeah. It's a pretty classic sort of spy game quest. You got to get in there.
Yeah.
You got to get them out.
It's 6-sided dice based in terms of its little RPG system. Which is part of what makes it similar to these kind of indie RPG zines, which are something I really love to find. There's a Houston Zine Fest, by the way, that I highly recommend to other people, or if your city has such a thing. And for people who are who love weirdo RPGs, the ones that someone hand publishes and staples together are the creme de la creme. And this one has a skill system. All of your interactions are pretty much driven by a set of 7 skills, which are athletics, cooking, deception, music, observation, wisdom, and wit. So you can already see it's kind of inspired by the classic skill systems of RPGs, but there are some very standout, unique elements there. The fact that you are a pizza delivery guy and that cooking is a big part of the mechanics of this game gives you already a pretty good understanding of some of the weird stuff that you're going to be doing. There are, for example, a large number of places in the game where this club is littered with pizza ovens that are hot and ready.
Yes. I mean, what a dream scenario, if you ask me. That's the type of club that I want to go to.
I want to go to an old coffin factory that is just rife with pizza ovens that I can access. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we should talk about the pizza ovens and the pizza die here in a moment. But first, I think the thing that really stood out to me in this game, and something that it's a lot of fun, is when we say this is a set up like a tabletop game with dice and whatnot. We mean very literally, you have these skills, observation, cooking, music, and whatever, and they're represented on the screen. You can see the 6 sides of a die next to each one of those skills. And when you start the game, it'll be like 3 of the sides are a 1 and 3 of the sides are a 2. And so, when you roll that dice, which is visually happening on the screen, dice are bouncing around on the screen as if there's sort of a glass tabletop across the entire the entire world that you're watching.
I really like, by the way, that sometimes the dice can like land kind of on each other and end up not perfectly flat or a little cocked or something like that. And there's a button to kick the table to kind of jiggle the dice until they all land flat. Very funny.
It's a great little addition there that just makes it feel a little more real, a little more tactile. And so you are in a classic RPG style, you're encountering all these different scenarios where you have different paths to solve it. And usually, or not usually, pretty much every time, the way you succeed in solving the situation is you will be tested. Let's say you may need to test your cooking skill against something. You will roll your cooking dice, and whoever or whatever you're testing against will also roll a die. And if your number matches or beats their die, then you succeed in the check. But the game gets far more complicated than that, because there's a lot of things that add and remove die from the tray. And that's what Shane was talking about a moment ago with the pizza stations. One of my favorite things about this game, not just the pizza element of it, although of course that's nice, but the pizza station actually serves a practical purpose in this game. And that is that you get to create your own die that are called pizza die. And these are fully customizable die that are
also pizzas
that you will
you also
build
collect the toppings for these dice, which
like
are
findable
the
objects.
Yes.
So you might find some fresh mozzarella by pickpocketing a guard, and that fresh mozzarella is a $2 side of like face of one of your die. And so you can build these little die that every time you do a skill roll, you're also rolling your pizza dice. And you ultimately end up with multiple pizza dice. And so you're completely customizing with whether it's getting you money or re-rolls or health or
you mentioned getting the money. Like the there are lots of ways to get money, but the pizza dice were probably the most reliable way. And the money is used to spend at any time to upgrade your dice, which leads to these really interesting kind of decision points where you're getting ready to even right up into the moment when you're about to roll your dice for a particular skill, you can go in and spend like $50 to make that dice that you're about to roll much better. Which is, I mean, it is honestly cool. And the fact that like there's not a huge penalty for like losing most of these dice rolls. In fact, I would say the majority of the dice rolls in this you can try over and over and over again and experience nothing negative apart from your own shame. And when you do that, you're piling up money, so you can kind of grind your way through the game. That, however, was not a realization that I had until I had died twice in this game.
It took me a little while to really click with the system and recognize what was possible, because there are also two sort of health bars that you are managing. Some of this game, I do believe, was inspired by something like Disco Elysium, which basically every RPG now carries elements of that game. But you have a physical health and you have essentially a mental health, and losing roles or particularly challenging roles or getting in fights with people, they may roll a die that can impact your physical or mental health. And if either of those reduce to 0 and you only start at 5, you will lose the game, whether it's dying or something else. There's actually a ton of different endings to this game. And it's I think I ended
There
up
are 11
through my
endings
course.
to this game. Yeah.
Okay, I saw 4 of them, and I think they're basically lined up to like how far into the game are you, and what was your cause for the game ending. So if you die, there's a couple different ways and times that you can die, and there'll be an ending appropriate to that. And then there are like, I think there's the ideal ending, and then there's other quote unquote good endings that you can get to. I don't think we'll spend too much time talking about it in this episode, but I saw 4 of them, including one of the final endings. But yeah, like that ability, what you were saying, a lot of it is sort of managing these resources and taking maybe purposefully more challenging roles because you're trying to access some resource, accrue more money, or maybe there's an opportunity for you to gain some health in this role, so you may do that one a couple more times. But I actually think the way they handle rolling and failing is pretty interesting. But before I mention that, I wanted to say like Disco Elysium, a lot of these things are redoable except for ones that are very clearly, it says only once. Right away if this is going to be a roll that you only get one shot at, so you may choose to save it and bulk up that stat. But I think the other biggest like mechanic in this game that really makes it work and makes it more interesting and also often very funny is the condition.
The condition
mechanic.
dice.
Yeah, which so you've already got the dice that you're the thing you're trying to beat, which can be like a person or like a pot of stew or like a ladder or all sorts of stuff. They'll have their core dice. You have your core dice and your pizza dice, but then there's a variety of conditions, and these conditions can be positive ones. So let's say you just aced a really challenging roll. You may now have the condition of confident, and that gives you a one-time roll, a one-time dice that has really positive modifiers, maybe a +1, a +2. It might be a regaining of some health or mental health. And you get it one time. The next time you are using that skill. But if you fail a roll, the penalty is most often a negative condition, which will again be a one-time use, but they're pretty funny usually. So if you were trying to like, dancing is a big thing in this game, and so if you were trying to dance your way into a solution and you failed it, you're probably going to get a condition like embarrassed or feeling awkward or tired, and maybe sometimes both or all three, depending on just how badly you failed and what the stakes of the situation were. And so the next time you have to roll that same skill, now that condition is going to be a dice that the opponent rolls and often gives well, actually it depends on the condition. You may still roll it, but it may give you a negative. If you're tired, the next time you have to roll a physical dice, now you have one that is all like -1, -2, or physical health, and you just have to kind of get through it. So it does make it more difficult if it's a roll that you actually really want to pass. Failing it makes it more difficult to pass it the next time.
That's actually the thing that was interesting to me about this system is it has this snowballing element where, if you're not doing well, it kind of incentivizes you to back off and find some easier thing that you can do. And in particular, it's a little odd because let's say you're failing at something physical, and then you get a bunch of negative consequence dice that are going to affect your ability to do other physical stuff. It doesn't affect your like social or I don't know, cooking or whatever. So it definitely incentivizes you to be a little bit more of a generalist so that you can always find your way forward. But also those condition dice don't go away unless you succeed, or really unless you do something in that kind of arena. So you kind of need to go and find something physically easy to do. in order to burn those off, because they don't last forever. But if you keep failing, you might burn some of them off, but you're just going to be replacing them as you
You're
go.
going to get them back. Yeah. That if you try the exact same roll and you fail, you just get the same. You technically lose the negative condition, but you just get it right back. So it does like any tabletop RPG, like a lot of this does kind of come down to like number crunching, where you can see before you commit to any sort of skill check, you can see exactly what dice they're going to be rolling and exactly what dice you're going to be rolling. So you can look and see, am I capable of passing this?
Do I even have a chance? And I kept early on as I was playing, I kept thinking, well, I guess they'd warn me if I was trying to do something completely impossible. No, they will not. They will say, it shows you right up at the top of the screen that, you know, they've got all 6s on their dice, and, you know, you've got all 3s. And so there is not a chance in hell that you're going to succeed.
Literally, you cannot win.
But you can try.
But you can try, yeah. One thing I really liked about this game, with the way they use conditions, though, is that sometimes for a more challenging thing that you have to accomplish, like there's a ton of stuff in this game that is not sort of mission critical, but allows you these chances to sort of burn dice or accrue money or whatever. But there are a few that it's like obvious you have to beat this skill check, and often the sort of final skill check that's going to move the story forward is really, really challenging. So you'll see something where it's like their dice will be, like Shane said, all 6s, or it'll be like 3 6s, a 7, a 9, and a 10, and you're sitting there with, you know, your die only having like a 3, a 4, and a 5. But this same skill check, often these are a person you're trying to convince to do something or get a piece of information from, they'll have like 4 or 5 other littler skill challenges you can do with them, where it'll be something like impress them with your dancing, and it's a more likely to be achieved challenge that if you do, it applies a permanent condition to this person that'll be something like impressed with your dancing, and now they have a single die that is all -1s. So you know, okay, they can roll a 6, 7, 8, or 9 or whatever, but now no matter what, they have a -1. So
it's also
maybe
worth throwing out there. There's a bunch of re-rolling mechanics that you can use to influence this as well. You've got a couple of do-overs on your dice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So every time you have 2 rerolls, and it's like Yahtzee, you can select which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to reroll. And then on your custom pizza die, you can add in rerolls that allow you to force your opponent to reroll. And then there's one special item that I found. I think you pickpocket someone for it. I don't know if you found it, but I found this pretty crucial to succeeding later in the game. There's one that actually, when you roll it, it swaps your die with the opponent's die. Did you happen to find that item?
What's that?
Yeah. So I forget, it was like a roasted jalapeno pepper or something like that. Like, but it basically, I mean, it won me multiple challenging rolls, because if they roll like an 8 on theirs, you roll that, you just swap, and now you have the 8, and you can just, you know, win right off of that. You don't even have to beat them. So it was a really powerful item. If you play this game, which I do recommend that you do, like pickpocket everybody, search everything, because a lot of these special pizza items are hidden, and they can make a huge difference. But anyway, the like these bigger challenges, you'll have a list of like 4 or 5 different things you can do that ultimately result in that final one, which was probably impossible to beat. Now you've stacked up these conditions on the person that you're trying to talk to, and it'll be pretty funny. It'll be like, loves your dancing, out of breath from laughing, respects your cooking, you know, things that you've actually done to like to sway them to your side or make yourself more like believable or whatever it may be. it's a lot of fun, and it really feels like like a good little one-shot campaign. There's like a lot of different routes you can take. There's Club Low is interestingly designed with a lot of interconnecting rooms and like hard light ladders that can move you from place to place. So
there's a lot of like very surreal and dreamlike logic in this game, like where you have lots of the doors are laser grids that you can sing in order to harmonize with to get through them. Weird stuff. Yeah. And on top of that, with, as we mentioned, the visuals are somewhere in between cartoony and Gary's Mod. And bizarre.
Yeah, Gary's Mod is a good. Yeah, they're and like the character design is all over the place. It's really hard to really break down all the individual pieces of this game, but it all kind of works. Like, this isn't really a design aesthetic that I personally find myself attracted to. I don't know that anyone necessarily does. I think it's sort of purposefully,
it's kind of repellent
to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's hideous, but also cool. I don't know.
Yeah, but it also made me laugh a fair amount, and like the writing is good and bizarre enough that it really does add to the overall tone. And if this game looked not like it does, I actually don't think it would work as well, at least not with the writing also. I think this mechanic you could use, like this mechanic in and of itself is really, really good and really, really fun. But the writing and the visual elements really go hand in hand and work really well. This game made me laugh a fair amount, and I don't like to repeat jokes on the show because that's not the best way to engage in a game's humor. But I think, we play a lot of games that try to be funny, and some games are more successful than others. And this is a pretty funny game, and it not in just like a internet referential way that so many sort of like indie games that we play often are. It's a pretty unique style of humor that matches the surrealness.
If I had one thing that I'll recommend to our listeners, both Nate and I sat down and tried to play this game on the Steam Deck. And I would really recommend that you grab a mouse for this one. It's a little bit janky on the Steam Deck, despite the fact that being a point and click, with a couple of track pads, you're pretty much okay. What was your experience like, Nate?
Yeah, so I fully played this on Steam Deck. I did not bail, but it was clunkier
I did, and I moved to the computer. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of wish that I would have, but I'm stubborn, especially once I had like kind of a long run going. I just thought, I'll play through it, and it's not impossible, And I love the Steam Deck, so I'm willing to, do, I guess, a less ideal experience for the sake of the rest of the experience on the Steam Deck. But like, it's just clunky, and to be fair, it doesn't say that it's Steam Deck compatible. Like, they're not pretending that it is. You get all the pop-ups when you play it on Steam Deck that are like, we don't know if this is going to work or not.
So why are we complaining? But we are.
Yeah, but it's a public service announcement. You can do it, like I did, but it just doesn't work as smoothly as I think this game is designed. And there are a couple things that like literally just were inconsistent on whether it did what the button typically does. So there's some real opportunities for improvement on the Steam Deck experience. But again, you could make it work. But I think I'd recommend just starting it on your computer.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's one thing that I leaned into very heavily using the like press a button to highlight every interactable object on your screen thing, because mousing around and hovering your mouse on things doesn't work that well on the Steam Deck. In a game as colorful and over the top visually as this, it did seem kind of strange how many things didn't jump out as being interactive until you hit that button.
Yeah.
But it's just a really it's just a really fun little world to explore. Like you're going to be able to wander around and knock on every door, drink from every puddle. It's pretty out there.
Yeah, there are some skill checks that have some impact that you may not have expected them to, and maybe not always positively, but I would still recommend interacting with everything. This game is set up to be a multiple runs sort of thing. It really wants you to like go as far as you can, die or otherwise, and then start a new run and maybe try a different approach. So
sure, that's
just
why
go
I
out
died
and experiment
so pointlessly.
Yeah. Man, I my last run, I made it all the way to the end, and I literally failed on the very last skill check for the like ideal ending, and it kind of drove me crazy. But ultimately, I think a full run, if you truly try to interact with everything and complete every possible skill check, everything, it's probably 2 hours to maybe 3. I think I spent about 4 hours total with this game, which was basically 2 half-hour runs and then one almost 3 hours long run, which is the one where I made it again. Like, I think I had essentially like a 100% run minus failing literally the last one, but I still got an ending that was interesting and fun, and I'm kind of glad that I saw it, but it was still disappointing to fail the core mission on the last one. But right in our wheelhouse as far as time, and I think we both are recommending this game pretty heavily.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely for our listeners. This is for the weird interactive fiction fans, and I think that's a lot of our fans as well.
Yeah. So we've got some time left. I think we haven't done this for a little while. Shane, what's been making you happy recently?
Well, I'm going to be super basic and say that the thing making me happy right now has been checking out The Bear. I don't know. Have you seen this show at all, The Bear?
No, but it's very high up on my it's very high up on my list of shows that I want to watch.
Sure. For anybody who doesn't know about this show, it's streaming on Hulu. It's an FX show, and it's the story of a kind of a young chef who has been working in some of the greatest restaurants in the world, but he's come back to his family's sandwich shop in Chicago to take it over after his brother, who had owned it prior, had taken his own life. And it's the thing that confused me about this show as I got started with it was that it is billed almost everywhere, including very prominently in the Hulu app as a comedy. And it is, I'm not going to say it's not funny, but it's quite dark. So it's had its second season come out recently, and I had heard a little bit about it when its first season was coming out. But the second season, it was getting kind of even greater accolades, and I figured I would just pick it up. It's a really excellent example of something that I think is a dying breed in television, and that is the half-hour drama. It's sort of a comedy drama, but in the streaming age, almost all of these shows have ballooned up to an hour. And even at a half hour, this thing is quick. One of my favorite things stylistically is it actually does really good montages. There are like cooking montages, Chicago montages, little musical character walking down the street, or vignettes of their lives montages. And it also has something that I really like in any kind of movie or media, which is a bunch of people working hard together to kind of build something together, right? A bunch of fairly competent people getting along and not getting along while they work together towards a common goal. It's fantastic. I think it's not just like when I talk about things like the montages and stuff, that it's a lot of that is the directing and the editing. All of those are really excellent. The cast is really good, and in particular, I have really enjoyed in the second season seeing all of these characters kind of getting through their family trauma and things like that. I don't want to spoil anything because it's a half-hour show. You could sum up like half of these episodes in a sentence, but the time you spend with the characters is just really enlightening, and you just kind of it's very slow drip to kind of give you the background and the history for the characters, which that's catnip to me. I love to watch them dealing with the issues of the day, but also quietly behind the scenes dealing with all of the problems that they've had in their home lives and family that you barely see on the periphery of these stories. Really loving it. So yeah, big recommendation.
Yeah, I've been really wanting to watch it. I've also spent a fair amount of time in Chicago. I love Chicago, and I also in particular love the food scene of Chicago, and so this show gets recommended to me from that angle as well. So I will watch it soon, but I just have
particularly in the second season, there's a lot of like there's a lot of celebrity kind of guest stars or kind of reappearing side characters. And there's also just a lot of like Chicago stuff going on. So yeah, good stuff.
Did you see the movie The Menu?
Yes, actually. So there's some shared DNA between this and The Menu. There's the main character of this show, Carmy, has had, well, I mean, he's got a lot of various traumas in his life, but among them is his experience working for a really abusive and aggressive head chef at a restaurant in New York City. And the picture that The Menu paints of kind of high cuisine fanciness is a little bit I mean, it's a horror movie. They all kill each other. So it, and I have to kind of tell you about the experience. So I love the kind of silly bullshit that you get at some of the weirdest high-end restaurants, where someone assembles some salad or whatever that's made out of, I don't know, all of the ingredients from the nearby forest, and each one tells its own story. I love that kind of shit. There's a restaurant in Houston called Eculent, and Eculent is it's kind of taken to the level of stunt food, pretty much. Like you'll sit down and like the first thing you eat might be pork belly wrapped in cotton candy, or you might have like a mushroom and dirt salad, or stuff that's really really out there. I love that. So these both of those things made me happy for those reasons. I like the weird out there food that was assembled with tweezers or uses some unconventional kitchen gadget that no one else knows what it is.
I don't have a ton of those sorts of experiences, but I worked in a restaurant for a little while. It was not high end, but a lot of my very close friends have worked in high end restaurants, and like that sort of content, is they have a love-hate relationship with it because it's great, but also it just gives you flashbacks to working in places like that. But The Menu was one of my favorite movies from last year. I just loved that movie. Well, I've got a recommendation. I think we're both talking about stuff that doesn't necessarily need any more recommendations out there. But I don't watch a ton of TV. But one of my favorite shows just had its third is in the process of releasing its third season. And so when I think about what's making me happy, this is pretty high up there. Have you ever watched The Righteous Gemstones?
Yes, I saw most of the first season, but what tends to happen in my house is if I do anything that's not watching TV, and I don't like really try to keep up. Julia will just keep watching the show without me.
Yeah.
She's ruthless. And so I got really far behind in The Righteous Gemstone. So I have seen the first season, and I've seen like individual episodes spread throughout the rest.
Well, it's absolutely one of my favorite shows of all time. The third season is really confirming it for me. If you're not familiar, it's about a family, a family that runs a mega church. John Goodman is sort of the patriarch of the family. Him and his wife, who has passed away, had started this mega church for seemingly good reasons. But now their kids, who are Danny McBride, Edie Patterson, and Adam Devine, all straight up comedy.
So good together. Like they're all incredible comedians, but when you put them together, the energy is ridiculous. Yeah, and the songs, the music.
The whole show. This is part of why I love it. So if you're familiar with Danny McBride's work, Eastbound and Down and things like that, it's a similar comedy style.
What's your favorite song, and why is it Misbehavin'?
Of course it's Misbehavin'. It's a fan. That song is like always stuck in my head. Although there's a couple good ones in the third season too. But the show really centers around the three fully grown adult children who are just horrible.
Truly adult children.
Yeah, because I mean, they're horrible and spoiled, and they're trying to like basically run the church, and they're just awful. They're awful people, top to bottom. But it's very, very funny. And some personal side of it. So my grandpa was a minister, but not at a mega church. But I definitely had a ton of experiences as a kid and in my teenage years going to these mega church things. He was a minister at a tiny little church, the kind of stuff that gets like squashed by these mega churches. And the show, I think, is very well researched around the sort of relationship between these mega churches and how awful they are often. And so the show has just this underlying element of like social commentary and indictment of the sort of capitalism that swirls around organized religion. And then on top of it, it's just hilarious and all fantastic performances. It also, one last note on it, like the show has a degree of like action and suspense that I would not expect from a show like this. It is it's not unlike a Coen Brothers film where it's a bunch of idiots who find themselves in incredibly complex, dangerous situations kind of repeatedly. And because it's a TV show, you just get it every single week. So the third season is as good as it's been, and I absolutely love it. So it's on Max, which I guess is the new name, the rebranded name of HBO Max.
Get the big Max.
But yeah, it's fantastic. So Shane and I are both recommending two of the most popular shows on there right now. But I
that's what our listeners come to us for, is recommendations for television shows which are already multi-season awards winners.
Yeah, right. Well, we balance it with the recommendation of Betrayal at Club Low, a fantastic indie game that we absolutely loved. And after playing this, I went and watched The Righteous Gemstones.
It is the Righteous Gemstones of indie RPG dice games for computer.
Sure. I don't know how you would qualify that, but I'm not going to disagree. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. Just a nice quick one. I think we'll have more of the crew back next week as Laura comes back from a great trip and we find Reagan wherever he may be. We want to remind everybody that this show is listener supported on Patreon. Shout out to all of our patrons.
Absolutely. Big shout out to the patrons in the Discord right now. Another thing making me happy was everyone in the Discord spontaneously discussing how they found the show, which I found to be really nice. There were a lot of different answers, everything from people who searched for specific games that we covered on Google or Apple Podcast to found us through our coverage of things like IF Comp or our interviews with people like Sam Barlow and and a lot of people who just heard about us from word of mouth. So speaking of, if you have a mouth and you can use that mouth to spread word of our podcast, we appreciate that very deeply. Word of mouth is how I would say most of these people have found us. If you found us in some weird way, personally stalking us or using somehow you got the stumble upon button working again, or
ooh, that is a throwback,
or anywhere else, I would love to know how you found us. You can reach out to us through any of our socials that can be found on shortgame.fm. If you visit shortgame.fm, it's a fantastic launching page that gives you access to the podcast. It's a link to share to those friends. And it has links to the socials of everyone involved. So please share it, visit it, talk to us, and most importantly, give us your game recommendations, because we are still gamers with a tiny niche full of tiny games. So please help us fill our niche.
Yes. Recommendations are how we make a ton of our selections for this show. So let us know. I think Shane and I will certainly be getting near the end of Tears of the Kingdom in the next few months. So my time for even more little games for the show will hopefully expand. Although Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out later this year, and I'm very excited about that. I don't know if you and I have talked about that yet.
Not
Shane.
really. I love D&D, but I've never played any of the Baldur's Gate games or really any of the D&D computer RPGs.
Well, I played Baldur's Gate 2 and I loved it, and that was like 10 years ago. So we'll see, but I'm excited for Baldur's Gate 3. But anyway, I think that's it for this episode. So thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again next week as always.
One more thing, if you're listening and you are the person who has captured my brother, please let him go. Get in touch. We could provide a ransom if it is reasonable.
Or would, sit and play some games with you or something. Maybe they kidnapped Reagan just to play games with him. In which case, you could have got us too.
I mean, just join the Discord if that's the case.
Yeah. Instead of kidnapping, pay $2 a month.